The strongest Catholic country in the world may not be the one with the biggest population, the largest cathedral, or the loudest public celebrations. It may be the country where a grandmother still teaches her grandchildren to make the sign of the cross before bedtime, where church bells still shape the rhythm of village life, where young men still answer the call to the priesthood, and where families still gather around the Mass even when the world around them grows distracted, divided, and secular. In 2026, the strength of a Catholic community is not measured by numbers alone. It is measured by faith that survives pressure, devotion that becomes culture, parishes that remain alive, and families that pass the gospel forward with love and courage. From Asia to Africa, from Latin America to Europe, these 10 countries reveal where Catholicism is not only remembered, but deeply lived. Some names will feel familiar, others may surprise you, and one country on this list may completely change the way you think about the future of Catholicism. Stay with us until the end as we count down the top 10 countries with the strongest Catholic communities in 2026. And if you love exploring the beauty, history, and living faith of the Catholic Church, subscribe to our channel and join this global Catholic journey with us. Number 10. Timor-Leste. A small island nation can sometimes carry a larger spiritual weight than an empire. Timor-Leste does not enter this list because it has the biggest Catholic population in the world. It enters because Catholicism there is not simply a private belief. It is woven into national memory, family identity, public grief, and the way ordinary people understand survival. In 2026, Timor-Leste remains one of the most Catholic countries on earth. Vatican News reported that about 95% of its population of roughly 1.4 million is Catholic, while other Catholic demographic sources place the figure even higher, around 97%. That means Catholic identity is not a small cultural layer here. It is the atmosphere of the nation itself. But the deeper reason Timor-Leste belongs on this list is not the percentage alone. During the long struggle for self-determination, the Church stood close to the people, defended human dignity, protected memory, and gave suffering a language of hope. In many countries, Catholicism is inherited as tradition. In Timor-Leste, it was also carried as a shield. You can feel that strength in the way faith moves through daily life. Parish bells do not sound like background noise. They sound like belonging. Feast days are not just religious events. They become family gatherings, village memory, and public testimony. A child learns prayer not only from a catechism book, but from the gestures of parents and grandparents who remember what the Church meant when the country was wounded. The most striking image came when Pope Francis visited Timor-Leste in 2024. Reuters reported that nearly 600,000 people, almost half the country, gathered to see him. For a nation of that size, this was not just a papal crowd. It was a national heartbeat becoming visible. Timor-Leste stands at number 10 because its Catholic community proves something powerful at the very beginning of this countdown. Strength is not always measured by global influence, wealth, or population size. Sometimes it is measured by how deeply the faith has entered the soul of a people and how fiercely that people refuses to let it disappear. Number 9. Croatia. Along the Adriatic coast, Catholicism does not arrive like a headline. It appears in stone bell towers above red rooftops, in roadside crucifixes, in village feasts, in soccer players making the sign of the cross before the world is watching, and in families who still treat the parish as part of their inheritance. Croatia is not the largest Catholic nation in Europe, but its strength comes from something harder to measure, a faith that has become memory, identity, and public courage. In 2026, Croatia remains one of Europe's clearest Catholic strongholds. The most recent national census recorded about 79% of the population as Catholic, while broader demographic summaries often place the Catholic share around the low 80s, depending on classification. In a Europe where many historic Christian nations are rapidly losing religious identity, Croatia still stands out because Catholicism remains visible in ordinary life, not only inside churches, But Croatia's Catholic community carries tension beneath its beauty. The country has known empire, war, communism, independence, and the pressure of modern secular Europe. Faith here is not just Sunday language. It is tied to how many Croatians remember their families, their villages, their suffering, and their survival. A church in Croatia is often more than a building. It is where baptisms, funerals, national grief, and family history pass through the same doors. The emotional power of Croatian Catholicism can be felt most clearly during public feasts and pilgrimages. Marian devotion remains strong. Local saints are remembered with pride, and Catholic symbols still hold a place in national culture. Yet the open loop is real. Croatia is not immune to the wider European drift. Younger generations face the same distractions, doubts, and pressures that are reshaping the continent. That is exactly why Croatia belongs on this list. Its Catholic strength is not a frozen museum piece. It is a living inheritance being tested in real time. If Timor-Leste shows a faith woven into national survival, Croatia shows a different kind of strength, a European Catholic identity still standing under the weight of history, beauty, memory, and modern pressure. Number 8. Colombia. Colombia's Catholic strength does not begin in silence. It begins in sound. Church bells over crowded cities, music rising from neighborhood streets, candles burning before images of the Virgin Mary, and families moving between joy, grief, and prayer with the same intense rhythm. Here, Catholicism is not only seen in old cathedrals, it is felt in the emotional temperature of the people. In 2026, Colombia remains one of the great Catholic nations of Latin America, with most demographic estimates placing Catholics at roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of the population. But Colombia's place on this list is not built on numbers alone. Its Catholic community has carried faith through violence, poverty, migration, political division, and decades of national wounds that could have broken the spiritual life of the country. The church in Colombia often stands where pain is most visible. In towns marked by conflict, a parish can become more than a place for Sunday Mass. It can become a shelter for memory, a voice for reconciliation, and a space where people still dare to believe that mercy is stronger than revenge. That gives Colombian Catholicism a different kind of force. Emotional, wounded, resilient, and deeply human. Its strength is also public and popular. Marian devotion, processions, Holy Week traditions, local patron feasts, Catholic schools, and neighborhood parishes still shape the way millions experience faith. Colombia's Catholic identity is not polished or distant. It is dramatic, warm, sometimes messy, but alive. Yet the tension is growing. Like much of Latin America, Colombia faces secular pressure, evangelical growth, urban disconnection, and younger generations who do not always inherit the faith automatically. That pressure raises the stakes. Colombia belongs here because its Catholic community is not protected by comfort. It is being tested in the streets, in families, in wounded memories, and in the daily choice to keep believing when history has given people many reasons to lose hope. Number 7. Italy. Italy carries the most unusual Catholic tension in the world. The heart of the church is inside its borders. Yet many Italians now walk past that inheritance as if it were part of the scenery. Rome can give the world St. Peter's Basilica, papal liturgies, ancient relics, and streets where Christian history feels carved into stone. But the deeper question is whether a nation surrounded by sacred memory can still keep that memory alive in its people. In 2026, Italy remains one of the most important Catholic countries on earth. Recent surveys still place Catholic identity at roughly 2/3 to nearly 4/5 of the population, depending on the source and method. Yet the tension is sharp. Pew reported that a large share of Italian adults were raised Catholic, but no longer identify that way, while Associated Press reporting noted that weekly Mass attendance has fallen far below cultural Catholic identity. That gap turns Italy into more than a Catholic country. It becomes a spiritual battleground between inheritance and practice. Still, Italy's Catholic community remains powerful because Catholicism here is not confined to parish walls. It shaped art, music, feast days, family rituals, education, architecture, and the calendar of public life. A baptism in a hill town, a procession through a narrow street, a candle before the Madonna, a priest blessing a family table, these are not museum images. They are fragments of a living civilization still trying to breathe. That is where Italy's strength becomes dramatic. It is not the strength of innocence or untouched tradition. It is the strength of a country wrestling with its own soul. Rome still pulls pilgrims from every continent. Assisi still speaks to the wounded. Padre Pio's memory still draws the suffering. Marian shrines still receive quiet tears from people who may not know how to explain their faith, but still know where to bring their pain. Few countries carry a Catholic responsibility quite like Italy. It must protect the visible heart of global Catholicism while confronting the quiet erosion of belief within its own society. That tension gives Italian Catholicism a haunting beauty. The center of the church is here, yet the next chapter depends on whether sacred heritage can once again become lived faith for a new generation. Number 6. Nigeria. For centuries, missionaries traveled from Europe to Africa. Now, one of the most striking reversals in modern Catholic history is unfolding. Nigerian priests and religious sisters are being sent to serve in Europe and North America. The countries that once brought the faith to Africa are now receiving spiritual energy from Africa, and Nigeria stands near the center of that transformation. By 2026, Nigeria is estimated to have nearly 40 million Catholics, making it one of the largest Catholic populations on the continent. But the real force of Nigerian Catholicism is not only its size, it is the speed, youth, confidence, and missionary fire of the community. In a time when many Western parishes struggle with aging congregations and fewer vocations, Nigeria continues to produce priests, sisters, catechists, choirs, youth groups, and parish movements with extraordinary vitality. The atmosphere inside a Nigerian Catholic parish can feel almost impossible to ignore. The music is full-bodied, the prayers are direct, the congregation is not passive. Faith moves through the whole body, through song, procession, silence, preaching, and public witness. Catholic life here is not treated as a quiet, private identity. It is lived as something communal, visible, and urgent. But that urgency has a cost. In several regions, Catholics face insecurity, violence, kidnapping, and attacks on churches. Some communities gather for Mass knowing that faith can make them vulnerable. That reality gives Nigerian Catholicism a sharper edge. The pews are full not because life is easy, but because people understand that hope must be practiced before fear takes over. Nigeria belongs in this countdown because it represents one of the clearest signs of where Catholic energy is moving in the modern world. The story is no longer only about old Catholic centers preserving their past. It is about young Catholic communities sending life outward. From crowded churches in Lagos and Onitsha to Nigerian clergy serving far from home, the message is impossible to miss. The future of Catholic strength is not only being inherited, it is being exported. Number 5. United States. The United States is not the country where Catholicism feels most culturally dominant. Its churches stand beside megachurches, secular universities, political battles, streaming culture, and a public square that often treats religion as something private. Yet, beneath that noise, one of the most complex Catholic communities in the world keeps operating with enormous reach. In 2026, about 1/5 of American adults identify as Catholic, which means more than 50 million Catholic adults in a country shaped by religious competition and cultural division. Pew Research also notes that American Catholicism is increasingly diverse, with Hispanic Catholics forming more than 1/3 of the Catholic population and immigrant families playing a major role in its future. That demographic shift has turned many parishes into crossroads where English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Korean, and Polish prayers can exist under the same roof. The strength of American Catholicism is not found in national uniformity. It is found in infrastructure, Catholic schools, universities, hospitals, charities, publishing houses, digital ministries, seminaries, campus centers, and pro-life organizations create a network that reaches far beyond Sunday Mass. In Washington, for example, the Archdiocese reports more than 667,000 Catholics, 90 Catholic schools, Mass in more than 20 languages each week, and Catholic charities serving more than 235,000 people annually. That is not just religious identity. It is organized presence. But the American Catholic story is full of friction. Many Catholics no longer attend Mass regularly. Public scandals have wounded trust. Political polarization has pulled believers into opposing camps. And yet, in the middle of that struggle, something unexpected is happening. Reports around Easter 2026 described a sharp rise in people entering the church in many United States dioceses, with one analysis pointing to an average increase of 38% compared with the previous year. That is the unresolved power of Catholicism in the United States. It is wounded, divided, diverse, institutionally strong, and still capable of drawing new people through beauty, truth, liturgy, community, and the search for meaning. The American Church is not a simple success story. It is a battlefield of decline and renewal at the same time, and that tension keeps it among the strongest Catholic communities in the world. Number 4. Brazil. Brazil is the giant that can no longer be described with easy certainty. For generations, it was treated as the world's Catholic heartbeat. Enormous churches, crowded festivals, Marian devotion, saints in family homes, and a Catholic imagination woven into music, politics, art, and national memory. But the giant is changing, and that change is exactly what gives Brazil's Catholic community such dramatic weight in 2026. The latest census data released by Brazil's statistics agency showed Catholics falling to about 56.7% of the population, down from more than 65% in 2010. In raw numbers, that still means roughly 100 million Catholics, one of the largest Catholic populations anywhere on earth. At the same time, evangelical Christians have grown sharply, reaching about 26.9% of the population. Brazil is still Catholic, but it is no longer effortlessly Catholic. That tension changes the story. A procession in Brazil is not just a beautiful tradition. It is now part of a struggle over memory, belonging, and the future of faith in Latin America. A grandmother lighting a candle before Our Lady of Aparecida may be praying in the same house where her grandchildren are being pulled toward another church, no church, or a completely different spiritual language. The battle is not always loud. Often, it happens at the dinner table, in music, in neighborhoods, and in the quiet question of whether Catholic identity can still move the next generation. Yet, Brazil remains impossible to ignore. The National Shrine of Our Lady of Aparecida is one of the largest Marian pilgrimage centers in the world. Holy Week processions still fill historic towns. Catholic social ministries still work among the poor, migrants, prisoners, and families living at the edge of society. The community may be under pressure, but it still carries a scale, memory, and emotional force few nations can match. Brazil's place here comes from that contradiction. It is both wounded and immense, challenged and deeply rooted, no longer dominant in the old way, yet still capable of gathering millions around Mary, the Eucharist, and the hope of mercy. If the future of Catholicism in Latin America is being contested, Brazil is one of the main arenas where that future is being decided. Number 3. Mexico. Every December, Mexico City becomes one of the largest Catholic stages on earth, as millions move toward the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, with flowers, songs, candles, and promises carried in tired hands. Streets become rivers of pilgrims. Knees touch stone. Families press forward through the crowd, not only to visit a shrine, but to return to the image that helped give Mexican Catholicism its face, its voice, and its national soul. In 2026, Mexico remains one of the largest Catholic communities in the world, with about 101.3 million Catholics, according to Statista's 2026 ranking. Yet the real force of Mexico is not locked inside its borders. It travels. Through migration, Mexican Catholic life has carried Guadalupe devotion, Spanish-language masses, home altars, family rosaries, parish festivals, and public processions into the United States and far beyond. That is where Mexico becomes different from many Catholic nations. Its community does not only preserve tradition at home, it spreads tradition through movement. A Mexican family may leave its village, cross a border, settle in a new city, and still bring the Virgin of Guadalupe into the living room before anything else feels stable. In that small act, Catholic identity becomes portable. It survives displacement. It gives immigrants a spiritual homeland when the physical homeland is far away. The history behind that devotion is not soft or simple. Mexico's Catholic memory carries conquest, revolution, anti-clerical violence, the Cristero War, poverty, and generations of sacrifice. Faith here was not merely inherited. At several moments, it had to be defended. That gives Mexican Catholicism a wounded courage beneath its color and music. The pressure is real. Younger Mexicans are less automatically Catholic than older generations, and religious competition is reshaping Latin America. But Mexico still has something few nations possess: a Marian symbol powerful enough to gather millions, cross borders, enter homes, and hold together memory, suffering, and belonging. Mexico's Catholic community remains strong because it does not stay still. It walks, migrates, sings, kneels, and keeps carrying Guadalupe wherever its people go. Number 2. Philippines. There are moments when an entire nation seems to pray with one voice. In the Philippines, that moment can happen in the middle of traffic, during a typhoon, inside a packed neighborhood chapel, or in the streets of Manila, when waves of barefoot devotees move forward with towels raised toward the Black Nazarene. The scene is crowded, intense, physical, and unmistakably Catholic. In 2026, the Philippines remains Asia's Catholic powerhouse. The Philippine Statistics Authority recorded more than 85 million Roman Catholics in the 2020 census, equal to 78.8% of the household population. Vatican News later reported that the Philippines had about 93 million Catholics in 2023, while Statista's 2026 ranking places the country among the 3 largest Catholic populations in the world, behind only Brazil and Mexico. But the Filipino Catholic story is not only about scale, it is about public devotion that refuses to become invisible. Simbang Gabi fills churches before dawn in the days leading to Christmas. Marian processions turn streets into living prayers. Family altars keep faith inside small homes. Overseas, Filipino workers carry rosaries, novenas, choir traditions, and parish service into cities across the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and North America. That global movement gives the Philippines a rare Catholic influence. A Filipino nurse in California, a caregiver in Rome, a seafarer in Dubai, or a domestic worker in Hong Kong may become the quiet person who keeps a parish choir alive, organizes a prayer group, or brings warmth back into a fading Catholic community. The faith does not only remain in the islands, it travels through sacrifice. At dawn, the doors of another church open. A choir begins to sing, candles flicker near the altar, and somewhere in the crowd, a child watches an older hand trace the sign of the cross. That is how Filipino Catholicism keeps passing from one life to another. Number 1. Poland. Poland's Catholic story does not begin with comfort. It begins in crowded churches under occupation, whispered prayers under communism, rosaries hidden in pockets, and a Polish pope whose voice once helped shake an empire. Few nations have carried Catholicism so deeply into the bloodstream of national identity. In Poland, the church was not only a place of worship. For generations, it was a shelter for language, memory, resistance, and hope. In 2026, Poland remains one of the most Catholic countries in Europe. Pew Research reported that Poland had the largest Catholic share among the countries it analyzed at about 92%, while Vatican News has also listed Poland among countries with Catholic incidence exceeding 90% of the resident population. Yet, the drama of Poland is not purity or nostalgia. It is the collision between one of Europe's strongest Catholic identities and one of its fastest cultural shifts. Church attendance has fallen sharply from its historic heights. Recent reporting on Polish church statistics placed Sunday Mass attendance at just under 1/3 of Catholics, far below the levels remembered by older generations. That means Poland is not powerful because nothing has changed. Poland is powerful because the battle over faith is happening in full view inside families, schools, politics, media, and parish life. The emotional center of Polish Catholicism still has a force few countries can match. Jasna Gora remains a national sanctuary. The Black Madonna still receives pilgrims who arrive with exhausted feet and private grief. St. John Paul II remains woven into the country's spiritual memory. All Saints' Day turns cemeteries into oceans of candles. Even those who struggle with the church often live near symbols, stories, and rituals that shaped their families before they were born. Poland belongs at the top because its Catholic community carries both inheritance and crisis at once. It is not a museum of old faith, and it is not a simple story of decline. It is a nation where Catholic memory is still strong enough to fill shrines, stir arguments, shape conscience, and wound the heart when it begins to fade. Somewhere on the road to Częstochowa, a pilgrim still walks with dust on his shoes, a rosary in his hand, and a question Poland has not finished answering. From the candlelit cemeteries of Poland to the crowded streets of Manila, from the pilgrims of Mexico to the resilient churches of Nigeria, these communities reveal the true strength of the Catholic Church in 2026. A strength not measured by wealth or influence, but lived in a grandmother teaching a child to pray. It is carried by a migrant crossing an ocean with a rosary, surviving through suffering, and filling entire cities with song. The story of global Catholicism is still unfolding. Some communities are growing, others struggling. Some defend ancient traditions, while others discover the faith anew. Yet across continents and cultures, the same prayers rise, the same gospel is proclaimed, and the same hope passes from one generation to the next. Which country on this list surprised you the most? And which community do you believe will shape the future of the Church? Share your thoughts below. If you love exploring the beauty and living faith of the Catholic Church, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey.